worked as an educator, manager, and trainer since the early 1970s. Her experience of teaching English as a foreign language has taken her all over the world, and she is widely known and highly respected for her continued contribution. Jane has been a prolific writer for many years in the TFL field, and three of her books have received the Best of the Year award from the English Speaking Union. She is co-author of the acclaimed NLP book, In Your Hands and Handing Over, and in 2000 she published The Success of Stress. Most recently, she co-authored Stream, a six-level course for adults learning English. And she also wrote a practical and inspiring book for teachers called Energizing Your Classroom. Both books are published by Helblinks. And now I leave the floor to Jane Revell. Hi, Jane.
Hang on. Hello. Let me just get.
Oh, great, Jane.
Doing it right. Good evening. I have to apologize straight away because I'm screen sharing. Yes, okay, chat box. Thank you. Because I'm feeling a bit croaky. I have bronchitis, and it means that I'm liable to cough a lot. So I apologize in advance. I didn't want to cancel this session, but my voice is just a bit strange. So that explains it. Thank you all so much for coming and welcome. And it would be really nice if everybody could just write in the chat box their name and where they are. Where are you listening to this webinar? What country or what town are you in? Just a very quick, I'm Jane in London, okay? So can you tell me in the chat box who you are? Rini in the south of France. Hello, Rini.
Hello, lovely to see you, Jane. You're very brave to continue. It's not easy with a rough voice. I think you're amazing.
Oh, thank you. Rini and I, by the way, have known each other for many, 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 many years.
We met in the south of France.
Met in the south of France. Yes, we did. We did. And Ariella is also from London.
Oh,
wonderful.
Hooray, how nice.
Hello, Ariella.
And Maria, it's lovely to see you.
Italy. Benevento, Patricia. Ornella from many of you from Italy. And Maria from Benevento as well. Okay, well, welcome everybody. This is a kind of a strange session because it's a two-part session, which we don't normally do. We normally do one-offs. But the idea was to give you time to think about things. So some of you, I think at least, have had some material up front with activities and things to read and think about. It will be great if you've managed to find time to do that. If you haven't, don't worry, it's okay. We're going to pick up on all those themes this afternoon, but I just felt that sometimes when I'm in a session, somebody's leading a seminar, and the person at the front says, think of a time when this happened, or think of an objective in your life, or think of a very good moment, or think of, and I'm thinking, I can't, I think I've gone blank. And I think it's really nice to have time to think at your own speed. I'm a great thinker, but I'm not a quick thinker. And I think many other people are like that too. So that was the idea of this, having the material in advance. Can you just perhaps show me with a show of hands how many of you have actually had a chance to look at it? And it's fine if you haven't. Well done, Rini. Good. Anybody else?
I tried.
Well done. Well, thank you for that. I'm looking down the bottom there. Yes, any? Ariella, did you have a chance? No? Patricia? No, it's okay.
Yes, I only this morning I've just had a chance just to have a look at it.
You've just spontaneously agreed to come. That's great. That's fine. Okay. Go back up that way. Okay. Well, like I say, it doesn't matter whether you have or you haven't. It was an opportunity if you had a chance to, and that's fine. So the overall shape of this two-part seminar is the materials that were sent out in advance, today's session, which will pick up on all of those things. And today is, unfortunately for me, mainly input. And then there'll be more material coming out of today, which Maria Antonietta will send you, things to kind of look back on what we've done today and to take you a little bit further in order to prepare for the second session. And the second session, which is on the 22nd of March, is, I hope, an opportunity for you to do some talking and share ideas, share feedback from maybe doing some of the activities, thinking about some of the ideas, possibly reading some of the books, I don't know, whatever form that takes. So that one depends very much on you. However, don't worry. You know what it's like as a teacher when you throw something to the students and you hope it's going to take all lesson and it doesn't, and they have nothing to say. If you have nothing to say on March the 22nd, that's absolutely fine. I, as usual, have over prepared, and I will have lots of things we can do on the 22nd, okay? So whichever way it goes is fine. I have a plan B, and we'll be talking about plan Bs. And then after that second session, there'll be some more follow-up ideas. So quite a sandwich, a 5-part sandwich. I'm going to try and move that chat. Why does the chat box get in the way of everything? I quite like the one where you have it down the side and you can see what you're doing. Okay, so having a look at aims for today. Not there. So this is what I'm hoping to do today, just explore some ideas which will allow you to think about either a personal or a professional goal, but looking at ideas, some of them much more sort of conscious and deliberate, and others which are much more intuitive or unconscious, arty-farty, if you like, a bit kind of vaguer. But I think it's important to use both ends of this because they give you different kinds of insights and different help. I'll be asking you questions in the chat box from time to time and getting you to contribute as much as possible. Okay, so I wanted to say a few things up front because there are some issues I think that need foregrounding. You might say, well, is this a good time to be thinking about objectives? Well, there's never really a good time. I mean, this might be a slightly worse time than most because of the uncertainty. But that also makes it quite a good time in a sense. Everything's up in the air. So maybe this is a good time to think about what we might do differently. And I had a magazine I was going to show you, and I've now mislaid it. There it is. Observer supplement. I don't know if you can just about see that.
Yes.
Make a new start in 2022. Okay. So perhaps this is a good time. We're coming to a change, perhaps in the pandemic. I'm still holding my breath, literally, about that. But maybe it's a time of change, time of flux, of new beginnings. It's also the year of the tiger. And maybe it's time to pounce. Some of the ideas would be useful for your students as well. Well, all of them would be. You may need to adapt the language. You may need to pre-teach for language. But all these ideas would be useful for them, especially as they move on in their schooling. I think we need to be a bit careful in how much we ask them to share about their personal goals, but certainly their professional goals. Yeah. And you know your own students and how close you are to them and how much you can intrude into their personal lives to explore some of these ideas. There are two things about pressure there. Rini will probably laugh at this one. Positive pressure and objectives pressure. A lot of the thinking is about getting into a good state in order to do anything. So it's good to be positive. I absolutely believe that. I also believe that it's okay not to be positive. And I think sometimes there's a lot of pressure on people to be positive a lot of the time. And that's quite hard. That's quite stressful. So I think we also need to acknowledge the times when we're not feeling so good, go with that, maybe use strategies to change that, but above all, not feel guilty about it. You know, not to think, oh, I should be feeling okay. I've got all these strategies. Yeah, there are times I think when we don't feel okay, and that's okay not to be okay. And the same with objectives. We don't always have meaningful or mega objectives in our life. You know, what are you going to do? What are you doing? I don't know. I don't know. I'm just thinking at the moment. That's fine too. So if you're here today and you haven't got a particular goal or goals to play with, fine, just sit back and listen and enjoy. That's all right. Don't feel you have to be taking part in everything. And then we've got, I've moved my chat box out of the way again. What do you do with the chat box? Put it up in the corner, try it up there. Okay. We need to be flexible because even if we have the best formed objectives in the world, we're not always successful. And so we need to have a plan B. It makes me sound like Boris Johnson. Oh God. We need to be flexible. We need to be able to say, okay, that's not quite working. I either need to do it differently or maybe I need to do something else. But that's all useful information. That's great. I just thought it's interesting that we plan lessons very often, most of the time, probably. We plan shopping lists. Well, I do anyway, maybe some of you don't. But we don't really plan our lives in the same way. We don't always have lists of things to do or things that we want to achieve. And maybe we could think about that. And it's a could, not a should. Yeah, maybe we could think about that. And then between all of these things, exploring these ideas, some physical activities to punctuate. And I think we'll start right now. So if you can just sit up straight for a moment. Raise both your arms above your head, hands facing each other, and just stretch your left hand arm towards the ceiling and bring it back. Stretch the other arm and release. Don't bend your elbows too much. Try and get your arms reasonably straight. Stretch, release. Stretch, release. Now both together. Stretch, release. Stretch, release. Lovely. Put your hands behind your head, fingers behind your head, open your elbows, and keeping the openness, bring your hands back over. Lovely stretch. Well done. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you a story. Am I? Yes, I am. Sorry, I changed my mind this morning about how I was going to do that. And in good teacher style, I could ask you what the story is going to be about, and you might say horses, and you'd be right, and mountains and grass. And I'm going to tell you straight away that I'm not going to be asking you any questions about the story. And very often in class, in an English language class, we tell a story, and then we ask lots of comprehension questions, and then we ask questions attaching to pupils' or students' own lives, etc., etc. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to tell you the story and leave it there. I just would like it to kind of frame everything we're doing. So it's a true story about a 16-year-old boy who was asked to write a composition for homework about what he wanted to be and do when he grew up. Some of you may know this story. It's a very famous story. So he went home that night and no hesitation, sat down at his table and wrote reams and reams of description about his goal of one day, his dream of one day wanting to be the owner of a horse ranch. And he wrote and wrote and wrote in great detail. And he didn't just write, he drew plans. He drew a plan of the house that would stand in the middle of the huge, huge ranch. I have the figures because I can never remember them. It was a 4,000 square foot house in a 200-acre horse ranch. And if you're thinking, how does that relate to meters and square meters? I have no idea, but you could look it up if you wanted to. It was big anyway, certainly very big. So with his drawings and plans and with his description, he went back to school the next day and handed his opus magnus into his teacher. You can guess what's going to happen, can't you? Can you? I wonder if you can. A couple of days later, the teacher handed it back. There was a large red F on the front with a little note, ominous note, saying, "See me after class." So after class, the boy with the dream went up to the teacher and said, "Why did I get an F?" And the teacher said to him, "Well, this is a very unrealistic dream for a boy like you. You come from an itinerant family. You have no means, no money. Having a horse ranch, buying the land, buying the breeding stock, all of these things cost a terrific amount. There's no way you could ever do it. But tell you what, I'm a reasonable man. So you go home and write yourself another composition with a more reasonable and attainable aim, and I will reconsider your grade." So the boy with the dream went home. And he sat and he thought and he anguished about it. And he said to his dad, "What shall I do? I don't know what to do." And his dad said, "This has to be your decision. I can't advise you, but I do know is it's probably a really important decision for you." So the boy tossed and turned all night. And the next morning, he went back to school and he handed the paper to his teacher and he said, "You keep the F, I'll keep my dream." And the person telling this story, whose name was Monty Roberts, it's a real person, turned to the people who were sitting in his lounge and he said, "I'm telling you this story because that was me. And you are sitting in my lounge in the middle of my huge horse ranch, and I still have that paper framed over the fireplace." And the interesting thing is, a few weeks ago, that same teacher came back to the ranch with a group of children to camp out. And as he was leaving, he turned to me and he said, "Monty, I'm so glad you didn't give up on your dream. I think I probably stole a lot of children's dreams way back, and I'm so very sorry. Follow your dream, no matter what." Isn't that a lovely story? I have to say, I'm not going to ask you anything at all. I just wanted to use it to frame what we're doing because I think it's such a wonderful story. By the way, I'll be giving you references for books and stuff. This story I originally found years ago, gosh, years and years ago. I've used it so many times, I can't remember. I've even incorporated it into books that I've written, even for children, rewritten it, simplified it, written it for adults, for teenagers, loads and loads of times. We'll be giving you a book list at the end of this session. And the book where I found this story is called Chicken Soup for the soul. Some of you may have heard
Yeah.
of it.
Mm.
Yeah, got lots of really invigorating stories, very moving stories.
Yes. Mm.
Okay, so moving on. So just to draw your attention to the activities that were sent out in advance, in case you didn't have time to look at them, I'll be kind of revisiting them a little bit today anyway. So there are quotations. I've got to move this chat box. I think I'll just shut the chat box. There we go. Quotations to read and react to. Okay. Now, I think I also asked you to think of what your favorite quotation was. I'll come back to that in just a moment. Then you were asked to reflect on what strategies you already have to be positive. And I know Reni's done a lot of stuff with people on this as well, those of you who have attended her webinars. And we did a certain amount as well in the seminar I did with you last year on surviving these times as best we can. And I'm sure you've got loads of stuff that you do anyway. So just checking on those. Then I asked you to think about or write down some of your goals, personal, professional, big or small, any size, so that you've come prepared with something to work on. So if you haven't yet done that, you might like to be thinking about it as we do the session. So you have something in mind that you want to explore, okay? Not necessarily a magic wand, but just as a way of getting more insights to help you move towards whatever you want. And then I asked you to check your goals against a list of criteria. We'll be looking at that in detail today. And finally, looking at more intuitive strategies, I asked you to think about a favorite childhood story that somehow influenced who you are as an adult. So what was it about the story? Tell the story to yourself and think about how that's influenced you. What has it meant to you to have that story in your life?